Chapter 14 of Planet of the Damned. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Planet of the Damned by Harry Harrison. Chapter 14. Life was ended. Brion's mind contained nothing but despair, and the pain of irretrievable loss. If his brain had been completely the master of his body, he would have died there, for at that moment there was no will to live. Unaware of this, his heart continued to beat, and the regular motion of his lungs drew in the dreadful sweetness of the smoke-tainted air. With automatic directness, his body lived on. "What are you going to do?" Telt asked, even his natural exuberance stilled by this. Brion only shook his head, as the words penetrated. What could he do? What could possibly be done? "Follow me," a voice said, in guttural Disan, through the opening of a rear window. The speaker was lost in the crowd before they could turn. Aware now, Brion saw a native move away from the edge of the crowd, and turn to look in their direction. It was Ulv. "Turn the car, that way." He punched Telt's arm and pointed. "Do it slowly, and don't draw any attention to us." For a moment there was hope, which he kept himself from considering. The building was gone and the people in it all dead. That fact had to be faced. "What's going on?" Telt asked. "Who was that talked in the window?" "A native, that one up ahead. He saved my life in the desert and I think he is on our side. Even though he's a native Disan, he can understand facts that Magter can't. He knows what will happen to this planet." Brion was talking to fill his brain with words, so he wouldn't begin to have hope. There was no hope possible. Ulv moved slowly and naturally through the streets, never looking back. They followed, as far behind as they dared, yet still keeping him in sight. Fewer people were about here, among the deserted off-world storehouses. Ulv vanished into one of these. "Light Metals Trust Limited," the sign read above the door. Telt slowed the car. "Don't stop here," Brion said. "Drive around the corner and pull up." Brion climbed out of the car with an ease he did not feel. No one was in sight now, in either direction. Walking slowly back to the corner, he checked the street they had just left. Hot, silent, and empty. A sudden blackness appeared where the door of the warehouse had been, and the sudden flickering motion of a hand. Brion signaled Telt to start, and jumped into the already moving sand car. "Into that open door, quickly, before anyone sees us." The car rumbled down a ramp into the dark interior, and the door slid shut behind them.
"Oh, what is it? Where are you?"
Brion called, blinking in the murky interior. A gray form appeared beside him.
"I am here."
"Did you—" There was no way to finish the sentence.
"I heard of the raid. The Magter called together all of us they could to help them carry explosive. I went along. I could not stop them and there was no time to warn anyone in the building."
"Then they are all dead?"
"Yes,"
Ulv nodded.
"All except one. I knew I could perhaps save one, I was not sure who, so I took the woman you were with in the desert. She is here now. She was hurt, but not badly when I brought her out."
Guilty relief flooded through Brion. He shouldn't exult, not with the death of everyone in the Foundation still fresh in his mind. But at that instant he was happy. "Let me see her," he said to Ulv. He was seized by the sudden fear that there might be a mistake. Perhaps Ulv had saved a different woman. Ulv led the way across the empty loading bay. Brion followed closely, fighting down the temptation to tell him to hurry. When he saw that Ulv was heading toward an office in the far wall, he could control himself no longer and ran on ahead. It was Leah, lying unconscious on a couch. Sweat beaded her face and she moaned and stirred without opening her eyes.
"I gave her silver, then wrapped her in a cloth so no one would know,"
Ulv said. Telt was close behind them, looking in through the open door. "Silver is a drug they take from one of their plants," he said. "We got a lot of experience with it. A little makes a good knockout drug, but it's a deadly poison in large doses. I got the antidote in the car. Wait and I'll get it." He went out. Brion sat next to Leah and wiped her face clean of dirt and perspiration. The dark shadows under her eyes were almost black now, and her elfin face seemed even thinner. But she was alive, that was the important thing. Some of the tension drained away from Brion, and he could think again. There was still the job to do. After this last experience, Leah should be in a hospital bed. But this was impossible. He would have to drag her to her feet and put her back to work. The answer might still be found. Each second ticked away another fraction of the planet's life. Good as new in a minute, Telt said, banging down the heavy med box. He watched intently as Ulf left the room. Hiss should know about this renegade. Might be useful as a spy or for information, though of course it's too late now to do anything, so hell with it. He pulled a pistol-shaped hypodermic gun from the box and dialed a number on the side. Now, if you'll roll her sleeve up, I'll bring her back to life. He pressed the bell-shaped sterilizing muzzle against her skin and pulled the trigger. The hypogun hummed briefly, ending its cycle with a loud click. Does it work fast? Brion asked. Couple of minutes. Just let her be, and she'll come to by herself. Ulf was in the doorway.
Kill her,
he hissed. His blowgun was in his hand, half raised to his mouth. He's been in the car, he's seen it, Telt shouted, and grabbed for his gun. Brion sprang between them, raising his hand. Stop it! No more killing! He shouted in Dissen. Then he shook his fist at Telt. Fire that gun and I'll stuff it down your throat! I'll handle this! He turned to face Ulf, who hadn't brought the blowgun any closer to his lips. This was a good sign. The Dissen was still uncertain. You have seen the body in the car, Ulf, so you must have seen that it is that of a magter. I killed him myself because I would rather kill 1 or 10 or even 100 men than have everyone on this planet destroyed. I killed him in a fair fight, and now I am going to examine his body. There is something very strange and different about the magter. You know that yourself. If I can find out what it is, perhaps we can make them stop this war and not bomb Njord. Ulf was still angry, but he lowered the blowgun a little.
I wish there were no off-worlders,
he said.
I wish that none of you had ever come. Nothing was wrong until you started coming. The magter were the strongest and they killed, but they also helped. Now they want to fight a war with your weapons, and for this you are going to kill my world. And you want me to help you?
Not me, yourself, Brion said wearily. There's no going back, that's the one thing we can't do. Maybe Dis would have been better off without off-planet contact, maybe not. In any case, you have to forget about that. You have contact now with the rest of the galaxy, for better or for worse. You've got a problem to solve, and I'm here to help you solve it. Seconds ticked by, as Ulf, unmoving, fought with the questions that were novel to his life. Could killing stop death? Could he help his people by helping strangers to fight and kill them? His world had changed, and he didn't like it. He must make a giant effort to change with it. Abruptly, he pushed the blowgun into a thong at his waist, turned, and strode out. Too much for my nerves, Telt said, settling his gun back in the holster. You don't know how happy I'm going to be when this whole damn thing is over. Even if the planet goes bang, I don't care, I'm finished. He walked out to the sand car, keeping a careful eye on the Dissen crouched against the wall. Brion turned back to Leah, whose eyes were open, staring at the ceiling. He went to her. Running, she said, and her voice had a toneless emptiness that screamed louder than any emotion. They ran by the open door of my room, and I could see them when they killed Dr. Stein. Just butchered him like an animal, chopping him down. Then one came into the room, and that's all I remember. She turned her head slowly and looked at Brion. What happened? Why am I here? They're dead, he told her. All of them. After the raid, the Dissens blew up the building. You're the only one that survived. That was Ulf who came into your room, the Dissen we met in the desert. He brought you away and hid you here in the city. When do we leave? She asked in the same empty tones, turning her face to the wall. When do we get off this planet? Today is the last day. The deadline is midnight. Kraft will have a ship pick us up when we are ready, but we still have our job to do. I've got that body. You're going to have to examine it. We must find out about the magter. Nothing can be done now except leave. Her voice was a dull monotone. There is only so much that a person can do.